Okay, here's the prediction for the 49ers roster. See, quarterback, it's going to be three of the quarterbacks more likely because Jimmy Garoppolo is a starter, of course. Nick Mullins is proven to be the backup. I mean, that's a no-brainer. CJ Beathard, for some reason, Kyle Shanahan likes the guy. So you're not going to cut this guy. This is like Shanahan's project right there. So no matter how much he sucks, he's still going to stay on the roster. So he ain't going to get cut. Okay, running backs. Running backs, that's going to be the most interesting one because it's the most stacked talent in the offseason for the Niners. They have the most talented groups who can catch the ball. So I'll go easier. Raheem Mostert, he's a lock. Jarrett McKinnon, I put him at number 2. Tevin Coleman, number 3, because he can be a go-to running back when injuries happen or take a breather. And then fullback, Kyle Juszczyk. He's going to be the starting fullback, of course, but I think we might keep 4 running backs. So Jeff Wilson's very viable. I think he's one of the most underrated players on our team. I think keeping Jeff Wilson's a viable option because he can contribute on special teams. So keeping Jeff Wilson is a interesting one, but I've heard JaMycal Hasty can actually take his spot because he can do a lot. So I'll go with Jeff Wilson because he's actually been a little more consistent and got more opportunities to shine. He's actually scored more touchdowns when he got his opportunities. So wide receivers, I'll say like 6 receivers because of we got Deebo Samuel. He's number 1. He's a lock. Brandon Ayuk, he's the first round pick, so you're going to put him as a lock. Let's see. Kendrick Bourne, he'll be the 3rd best receiver. Of course, he'll be a lock because he's putting the effort and he's putting the work out there. You know, he's putting the extra effort. And then number 4, Trent Taylor. He's kind of like Jimmy's go-to guy before injuries, you know. I think he's a no-brainer. And he can actually get you the short yardage when you need it, you know. So when you need a guy in a short yardage situation on 3rd and short, Trent Taylor's your guy. And then number 5, if Dante Pettis can prove himself, I think he'll be the 5th guy. And then it comes down to number 6. Number 6, to me, would be the most interesting part. But I think as far as the Niners, I think they're going to try to keep most of their guys. So I think Jaquan Jennings will sneak on the roster because he'll do a lot more on the roster. He'll do good on the kickoff team as a gunner. And he'll probably do good in the red zone. He'll be developed the right way. Because I think cutting Jaquan Jennings will be a big loss, and because I think teams are going to snatch him because he's pretty good. So I don't think cutting him would be a good idea. So he would be the 6th receiver. Sure, Tavon Austin, Kevin White, and those other receivers. I just don't think they have that dog instinct. Sure, we might need a speedy receiver, but I think Ayuk would bring that type of speed to the offense. Okay, offensive line. Trent Williams, lock. Laken Tomlinson, lock, of course. Weston Richburg, when healthy, he's a lock because we paid him so much money. Then you got, Tom Compton is probably going to stay because he's a Kyle Shanahan system guy, so he'll stay. Brunskill will stay. And then you got Mike McGlinchey. He's a lock. He's a starting tackle. Justin School, one of the most underrated backups on our team. I mean, when Joe Staley was injured, he stepped up and played as good as a starter. So I think keeping him is a viable asset to our offensive line. Ben Garland, very important to the offensive line. He should be good to go. So he's a lock. Brunskill, he can play like guard and tackle. But if you put him at center, I don't know if he'll play good. But I keep him on the roster. So we're looking at about 7 offensive linemen on the roster. I mean, that's kind of like, I think rosters by the depth-wise, I think we're supposed to keep 8 offensive linemen on the roster. So let's see. I already put like maybe about 7 of those guys. So there's another guy who could be a lock easily. So you got Colton McKivitz. He's a lock because he can either push him for a starting guard position because that rookie from West Virginia, I think he'll be the one that actually takes a starting job later in the season or maybe steps in for injuries. So Colton McKivitz can be the guy who can play the tackle or play guard. He looks like he can be the NFL guard. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know if they're not gonna cut Compton, man, because it seems like he's a fit on Shanahan's offense. I think Brunskill's a better starter than him or McKivitz. Those are the two good options. Okay, on defense. Okay, defensive line. As far as like predictions, Nick Bosa lock. Eric Armstead lock. D Ford lock. I mean, DJ Jones a lock. I mean, you got Kentavious Street, he's a lock. Ronald Blair, he should be good to go, but he should be coming off IR soon, so he's a lock. Kerry Hyder should be a lock because he's actually pretty good. He knows the system because he played under Kocurek before in Detroit, so he'll be a lock. Let's see. Kevin Givens, I keep him because he's a good run stopper. You can put him in rotation, so he's a lock. Let's see, D-tackle over there. I mean, Kinlaw is going to be a lock. Thomas will be a lock. It's because you need those guys to be versatile. But Kinlaw is going to be like either your rotational guy. Solomon Thomas will either do the same shit. So that would be kind of like exactly for them. Those two guys, Kinlaw and Thomas, are lock because they're going to have them play the inside. And they're going to rotate. So I think DJ Jones will be the starter because he's actually proven himself. And Eric Armstead will play the inside because he's a D tackle. And D ends, it's pretty easy to go with Hyder and Blair because they're more capable backups that can start in. And then you got, I don't know, like as far as locks, Kevin Givens, he actually stood out last year when he came out of the practice squad. So he can be a guy you can keep in your rotation. Julian Taylor, you can stash him off the IR. Maybe when injuries happen, you can get him off. Like if he's on the waiver or something. But I don't think he's going to be cut. So I think we'll keep him on the roster because he should be coming back like later in the season. Maybe in 6 weeks into the season, we'll get him on our roster. He should be healthy from an ACL injury. I mean, you got other guys. I mean, those are my locks right there. As far as like depth-wise, linebacker, Fred Warner, of course. Quan Alexander, of course. Dre Greenlaw, Mark Zolcha, whatever you say his name, and Ashawn Salyer is a lock. And then you got Joe Walker. I would say Joe Walker because he does good on your special teams also. I think they'll keep about 6 linebackers for depth-wise. So that will be the locks right there, 6 linebackers. Okay, safeties. Jimmy Ward, Jaquiski Tartt. Those are 2 locks. Backups. Marcel Harris will either... No. Yeah, Marcel Harris will either be there because he's actually a capable backup. So he can step in when you need to. And Tavarius Moore, he's very versatile. He can play the free safety. Or he can play cornerback at this man-to-man coverage. So keeping him as a viable asset. And Jonathan Cyprien could either make the team or be on the practice squad. So I don't know. Because they made like a league rule where they could actually put a veteran on the practice squad. So maybe he might make it over Marcel Harris. But I think Marcel Harris is younger and cheaper. And he's got better upside. So I think Harris will probably make the team. So that would be my opinion. Cornerbacks, I think we're going to keep about 5 guys. Richard Sherman, of course, lock. Emmanuel Mosley, lock. Jason Verrett, lock. I mean, those are guys that... Because Verrett, he plays the man-to-man, so he knows the coverage well. He's catching on. Witherspoon will make the team, of course, because he's a big, tall cornerback that you need. So that's 4. And then Quan Williams. Quan Williams, the nickel corner. You'll need him to play that position. So he'll be your nickel guy and step into the lineup, of course. He's like your 3rd cornerback that you need to go after the slot receivers. So that's a guy you need to keep on the roster. So he's a lock. And those are the other 2 corners I just brought up. I mean, but you got 5 total right there. And I don't need to predict the special teams. It's not even a big deal. You got Robbie Gould and Mitch Wisnowski. Those are 2 easy locks. I mean, I'm talking about like roster predictions. Like, okay, what's going to be different this year is like, as far as like tight ends, tight ends are going to be a little different this year. Tight ends are going to be a little different because they're a different lineup. So I'm going to give you the prediction of the rosters of the tight ends. See, George Kittle, Jordan Reed, those are your 2 locked-in tight ends right there. Ross Dwelly would be your 3rd. And then you got Charlie Warner. So that will be a lock. You know why I'm putting the tight ends at the 4th, at the last of the list? Because it's the most interesting group on the team. Because this is what makes it more viable for the tight end position. This is why I'm putting it last. Even though it's not on defense, it's on offense. See, George Kittle, he got his big payday. He's going to be the starter, of course. Jordan Reed's a bonus. He's a bargain. He's going to be your receiving tight end. Ross Dwelly's more like your ultimate team player. Very viable. Can catch the ball, be a red zone threat. He's a decent blocker. And then keeping Charlie Warner is an asset because he's a good blocker. He can add some elements to the passing game. He might catch some passes, he might not. But if you develop him, maybe he can be good. So keeping him on the roster is very viable because last year when we had Caden Smith, we cut him and the Giants claim him off waivers. I don't think we're going to make that same mistake. I think we're going to keep Charlie Warner and develop him. I think his blocking style is what's going to keep him on the roster because it's going to open the running game, and then he's going to probably get some opportunities to get some passes towards him. But mostly, I think 3 of our tight ends are going to be involved more. But I think Charlie Warner is going to be in the blocking situation, like a designated blocker, be on special teams. If injuries were to happen, maybe he gets limited playing time to catch the ball. I mean, that's my honest opinion. Those are my predictions. I mean, give me some good opinions about it, you know. I like to talk football, you know. But I think this year we're going to run a similar offense, but it's going to be a little different. See, defense are going to start to adjust a little bit on our offense because they're going to stack the box. They're going to stack the box. They're going to try to stop our offense. What we're going to do is try to do play action, do a little bit of these 2 tight end sets. That's why we added Jordan Reed. And then our receiving backs, you know, the running backs, throw those little short passes, let them get those big plays. And then adding Brandon Ayuk gives us a different element to the offense. He may not be as good as Emmanuel Sanders, but he's got those long arms. He's got the potential to be like an Odell Beckham type player. Deebo Samuel, when healthy, he can be a factor. Kendrick Bourne, he's on a contract here. He's going to have to prove something. So that's going to be the more interesting season. Can Kendrick Bourne prove himself and get a good deal? And then you got Dante Pettis, the most unproven receiver on our roster, who's actually underperformed last year. Maybe he can break out and do something better this year. Trent Taylor, the guy who hasn't been healthy, can he actually be the factor, the X factor of this receiving core? Who knows? But I'm just saying. I mean, then you got some other guys. Other talent. You got Jaquan Jennings, who can be a sleeper to steal the draft, who can actually prove himself. But, it's a good quality depth. There's good depth at those positions. The receiving position is very deep. But quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, he's no question the starter for sure. Nick Mullins, what's there for him to prove? Beathard is just like, he hasn't proven nothing to be the backup. So you drafted him to be your starter at one point. You know, at one point, Kyle Shanahan drafted you to be the starter because he knew eventually Hoyer was going to fucking suck. So he had hopes on Beathard to be the guy, and he never turned out to be the guy. So that's why we made that trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, because he realized that Beathard was a fucking failing project. So that's the truth. As far as record-wise prediction, 12-4. Maybe we win the division. It depends on how we play against Seattle. Seattle may be a little better this year. They may be the team that we got to take seriously this year. It may come down the wire again, but it may come down to the point to where we have to go to their house in the playoffs, you know? There's a different outcome of a game, you know? Different perspective. As far as me being honest, we got a lot to prove this year. We got a target on our back. We're the NFC champions. We're not catching nobody by surprise this year. We're the team that people are going to watch films and be trying to adjust to. So we got to be ready. We got to hit them right in the mouth. So that's all I got to say.